Hello, and welcome to Learning to Read Book Time. I'm Meg. This is the month of September, and September is Constitution Month. And because of that, I'd like to read to you a book that I wrote. It's called The United States Constitution, How Our Liberties Came to Be. On the front cover of my book, you can see some symbols. There's the American flag, the torch of the Statue of Liberty, and a Liberty Bell. The sound of freedom. This is a souvenir that I purchased when I visited Constitution Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Sometimes the words liberty and freedom are used interchangeably, but there is a difference. Liberties, those are written down. Those are rules or guidelines written down. Our freedom, that is our ability to think on our own and move and interact within those written liberties or those written guidelines. For illustrations in my book, I decided to use original or authentic artwork. Before the invention of the camera in the mid-1800s, history was recorded through writing or storytelling and artists painted pictures. So right now I'm going to share with you the United States Constitution, how our liberties came to be.
A long time ago, Edward was the King of England. He was getting older and he had no children. Edward needed to have a successor, or heir, to replace him on the throne when he died. This was a problem for Edward. He could choose his close friend Harold, or maybe his cousin William. William lived in Normandy, which was part of France, and was not as close as his friend Harold. Who would he choose, Harold or William of Normandy? Here is a picture of a tapestry. It's called the Bayeux Tapestry, measuring 230 feet long and 20 inches in height. It's wool yarns on linen cloth, and there are 58 scenes depicting the Norman conquest. It was made in the 11th century. You can see the Bayeux Tapestry in Normandy, France at the Bayeux Museum. And this scene is depicting King Edward's instructions to King Harold. King Edward picked his friend Harold. Soon after King Edward's death, Harold crowned himself King of England. This made William of Normandy angry. He felt a blood relative should be king, not a friend. We see King Harold taking the oath of office in this painting. Notice the detail on the tablecloth. William of Normandy became so angry he was not the king that he decided to invade England with an army. There was a fight, the Battle of Hastings. King Harold was killed, and William of Normandy became king. From then on, he was known as William the Conqueror. The year was 1066. As king, William took land away from the people. He gave it to his friends. He demanded the people pay high taxes. King William instructed his judges to ignore laws. Judges were to make decisions that favored people in authority. King William became an oppressor. Look at the expression on the face of some of the people in the paintings. In the dark sky. This is showing the body of Harold before William I. Years passed and William was getting old. Soon there would be a new king. Who would that be? King William had 4 sons. Traditionally, the eldest son would be heir to the throne. However, his first son Richard was killed in a hunting accident. Therefore, his second son Robert would become king when William died. The people of England were hoping for good change, but this did not happen. Robert ruled the same way his father did. The people continued to be unhappy. Robert didn't want to be king. He wanted to be a soldier. When there was war, Robert went off to fight. And in this painting, Robert we see at the Siege of Antioch. Notice the details on the castle and the beautiful painted folds on the capes as they're flying through the air. Next in line to be King of England is the third son, William. King William was king for a short time. He ruled much the same as his father. Then one day, William was found dead in the woods from what was believed to be a hunting accident. Some people thought he was murdered. Perhaps at the time, people were wondering if government oppression was simply a way of life. And this is a wood carving of William II's hunting accident. Notice the look on the face of the horse rider leaving the scene. What do you notice on his back? The fourth son, Henry, was then made king. Henry was happy to be the King of England. Henry wanted the people of England to like him. He was kind to the people. He told the people that he would not treat them the same as his father and brothers did. Not only did he say this, but he wrote it down. This document is known as the 1100 Charters of Liberty, or the Coronation Charter. And here we see a copper plate engraving of the marriage of King Henry to Matilda. Can you find symbols of the Christian faith? In 1100, the Charters of Liberty was the first time a king made a written promise. King Henry promised that he would not overtax. He promised that judges would follow the laws. The people of England were happy. The 1100 Charters of Liberty worked for 100 years. The people had liberty. In this oil painting, we see happy people. It looks as though some may be dancing. The painting is titled "The Effects of Good Government." As the years passed, another new leader of England took the throne. Now John was the King of England. He did not recognize the promises of King Henry. He took land that he wanted. He started an income tax. He would punish people by having them beaten if they did not pay. He told the people they had to worship God his way. He became known as Bad King John. This is a portrait of King John. It's in the London National Portrait Gallery. Does this painting make him look like a bad king? Beautiful shades of deep, rich greens and red. The leaders of the church refused to listen to King John. The church leaders got together and wrote down all the bad things King John was doing, with ideas to make life better. They put together a document and made King John sign it. This is known as the Magna Carta. The year was 1215. The Magna Carta is important to our story. The Magna Carta was like a treaty or agreement between the church leaders and the king. The king would have to listen and keep his promises to the people. King John failed to keep his promises. The people realized that some kings were good and cared about the people of England, and other kings were concerned about themselves, power, and money. This is an oil painting of King John signing the Magna Carta. Notice the details. A lot of detail all throughout the painting. We even see a dog. In the centuries following the Magna Carta, there were good and bad kings. Good kings followed the laws. The people felt bad kings would always threaten their liberty. The people understood liberty, and there was peace when the people in a country had liberty. But how could they keep it? This is an oil painting by Peter Bruegel called Children's Games. There's a lot of movement in this painting. Do you recognize games being played? Centuries passed, and England had decades of good and bad leaders. Queen Elizabeth was a leader that promoted the arts and cultivated the Renaissance era. It was during Elizabeth's reign that the North American continent was becoming familiar to British and European explorers. British colonists were settling the eastern regions of North America. Though people admired Queen Elizabeth, they knew they could be killed for their religious beliefs. Were the people free? There's a portrait of Queen Elizabeth I. Notice the details on her dress, her jewels, and her ruff. The collar around her neck is called a ruff. And this portrait is in the London National Portrait Gallery. The year is 1625, and Charles is King of England. He collected money from the people so he could do what he wanted. He passed the martial law, which made soldiers in charge of putting people in jail that didn't pay or obey. The people had no trials or any way to express their concerns. King Charles ignored the Magna Carta. What were the people to do? And here is an oil painting of King Charles I in 3 positions. Deep, rich purples and blues. Look at the detail in the lace. What they did this time was put together a petition and asked King Charles to sign it. This petition reminded the king of the Magna Carta and what it stated. King Charles became angry. The people threatened to throw him off the throne by force and demanded their liberty. When King Charles realized this was about to happen, he gave up and signed their petition. This document became known as the Petition of Rights. The Petition of Rights guaranteed the people the same liberty the Magna Carta promised them. But King Charles would not stop. He removed representatives from his government. He broke his promises to the people. The people banded together and wrote a letter to the king. Here we see a picture, an oil painting. You can recognize King Charles in the red cape. Notice the ruffs. There appears to be 2 different groups of people in the streets. In their letter, they listed the ways King Charles was breaking promises. This letter became known as the Grand Remonstrance of 1641. The people said they would start a civil war if the king didn't keep his promises. The people fought their king and his army for over a year, 1648 to 1649. King Charles was found guilty for not keeping his promises to the people. The Grand Remonstrance document continued the idea that a king would keep his promises, have limited powers, and the people would have their liberties. This is a painting called The Execution of Charles I. Again, much detail. And notice how the artist flanks the painting with smaller depictions of King Charles. The year was 1688, and James II was king. And once again, a king broke the promises to the people. He was taxing people without their approval, and he was using land freely for himself. He was changing laws. He was not letting the people own guns. They wrote him a letter reminding him that what he was doing was wrong. A document, the Bill of Rights, was presented to King James, but he refused to honor it. The people decided to fight the king for their liberty. King James did not want to fight the people or have a civil war or sign the Bill of Rights. So he ran away. King James fled to France and was protected by King Louis XIV. King James died in France. And in this oil painting called The Lost Cause, We can see in the painting that he had some helpers helping him escape to France. When James fled England, William and Mary became king and queen, sharing the throne. William and Mary recognized the people's thirst for liberty and signed the Bill of Rights. This put an end to leaders using the country's treasury as their own piggy bank. This document pushed forward the belief that all people have unalienable or natural rights. Also, this document secured the Protestant faith throughout England and freedom of religion. The people were beginning to see liberty as a better way of life. And these are portraits of King William III and Queen Mary II. These portraits can be viewed at Windsor Castle in London. In 1760, King George III was king. England had just defeated France in the 7 Years' War, fought in North America and also known as the French and Indian War. England demanded their British colonists to pay for the war. This meant the colonists would now pay taxes for things like paper and tea. It's a portrait of King George III. I like the artist's use of gold paint. It looks shiny. King George has a serious look on his face. The British continued to find ways to collect money from the British colonists that were living in North America. The colonists had enough. Representatives from the 13 colonies came together and listed their grievances against the British government. This document, called the Declaration of Independence, formally announced to the king their independence from the British Crown. The Declaration of Independence explained that all people had unalienable rights and introduced a new theory of government based on liberty. You can see the original at the National Archives in Washington, D.C. In 1783, after the American Revolution, when the founding fathers of the United States were forming the new government, they remembered history. They remembered how the people of England for centuries had fought for their freedoms, obtained their liberty, and limited the power of the kings and queens. When the United States Constitution was being written in 1787, the founding fathers knew this history. This was the first thing they did. The founders ensured freedom to the citizens and limited the power to the leaders of government. The founders ensured that never in this new country could a leader or the government take over the people. The citizens of the United States of America would always be free. This is an oil painting of the scene of the signing of the Constitution. It was in September in Pennsylvania. I wonder what the temperature was that day. Were the men hot in their stockings and coats? I recognize Ben Franklin. Do you?
And that is how our liberties came to be. I hope you enjoyed those beautiful illustrations that supported the text. They capture history and show what life may have been like centuries ago. Our founding fathers certainly remembered their history when they put together our U.S. Constitution. Many countries try and use ours as a model for their own, still to this day. To you teachers out there, this book makes an excellent read aloud to your class. So I hope you learned something today. Take what you learn, tell someone. Talk about it. I'm Meg. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, and send your comments. Bye.